Graham, for that very kind introduction. Before I start, who here has ever had an idea for an invention, or had a dream in life that, wow, I'd like to do that? Look at that! Look at those two hands shoot up. I'm sure the others just haven't put their hands up.
I'm still 9 years and 10.
Good job, thank you for that. What I've found in my journey as an inventor is that I haven't met anyone yet who hasn't had at least one good idea in their lifetime, and many people have had many good ideas in their lifetime. But the difference with an inventor is an inventor tends to take the next step, which is to turn the idea into reality. And that's just about the difference between an inventor and just people who are not particularly inventive. But before I go into how inventors invent inventions, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my history and the upbringing of how I got into inventing in the first place. My father had his own engineering business, and he was quite a creative person. He was involved in motor racing and motorbike racing himself, and he was quite well respected around Australia for the bikes that he built and the engines that he built, and also by the people that he helped build motorbikes for. And my mother was a dressmaker, and again she was quite a creative person as well, and she was also respected around Australia for her dressmaking abilities. So I had this breeding in me, you might say, about being creative and about being inventive. And I can remember it first used to come out when I was, we used to live in my dad's workshop when I was about 4 years old for about a year, because Dad was building the house. It took him about 12 to 18 months to build our house, and the front of the workshop was the only place we had to live. So there was me, there was my older brother, older sister, mum and dad, all living in the workshop with Dad working at the back of the workshop. So it had its drawbacks, but it also had its good things. The good thing was that I always had access to things to play with, things to pull apart. I used to like pulling apart machines, used to like pulling apart motorbikes, used to like doing all that stuff and making stuff. However, putting it back together again, that was a little bit of a different. That was a bit of a different ball game when I was 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. They didn't always go back together the way they came apart.
You got a few parts left over.
Very often had a few parts left over. Sometimes I had quite a few parts left over. But it was all part of the learning experience. And then as I got older, I got into motorcycle racing myself. And we were quite successful, me and a group of other people I was involved with, we were quite successful with our bikes. We held Australian records, we held world records. We were quite successful in that. And then I started up an engineering business based on my success in motorbike racing. But the problem was that I was in my late 20s and kind of life was passing me by. Like my engineering business consisted of Warren Wilson and Warren Wilson and Warren Wilson. Well, that was all right for the start, but eventually the conversation with myself got a bit boring. I was like a bit of a fluke. So I thought I really wanted to do something else, get out there in the world. So a friend of mine was travelling over in America at the time, and she came back and said, look, I've seen this really great product in America. It was a child's ride-on toy. It was a self-propelling ride-on toy, but it looks a bit average. You only saw it in fairs as a hire ride, but I really think you could do something with it. So I had a look at her photos, and what I did is I redesigned it and re-engineered it. I brought in a group of investors because it needed some funds to get it off the ground. I built the machines to actually build the product, and I also, from the marketing point of view, I had some commercials made, and I'll show you the commercial now, and you can judge whether you think this would have been a successful product or not. As you can see, kids seem to like it. They seem to have a good time. Yeah, who thinks that would have been a successful product? Hands up, anyone? Anyone think, nah, it wasn't very good? Well, in actual fact, it was a great product that cost me $100,000. from a financial point of view, it was a disaster. And it wasn't because it wasn't a great product or because kids didn't like it. Part of it was because that I actually had no idea about how to run a business and how to promote a product. And that's what it came down to. So after a year and a half or 2 years, like I was $100,000 down the tube, and I was starting to scratch my head because I'd run out of my money, and I'd run out of other people's money as well. So I had about $100,000 I had to pay back. But the thing about that product was, we used to go over to Nuremberg. We exhibited it 1 year at Nuremberg at the Toy Fair. The Nuremberg Toy Fair is like the Wayville Showgrounds undercover, and then put another layer on top. It's the largest toy fair in the world. And I was fortunate enough to be there exhibiting the shuffle bug. And I can remember, I had a couple of salesmen. They were standing, actually one of them was a friend of mine, and they were standing by the Lego stand. Lego had a great stand at the Nuremberg Toy Fair. And these two salesmen were saying, we really need something to compete with Lego. Because at the time, you couldn't compete with Lego. They managed to keep everybody out of the market. There were no lookalikes, no copies, and no one had successfully come up with another product that would compete with Lego. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. I was a bit worried about my $100,000 debt and how I was going to pay that off. Until I came back to Adelaide. And I can remember I was driving along Morford Street out of Adelaide, past the Adelaide Oval up Montefiore Hill, and all of a sudden it struck me, why not build a building block that moved? Now, before I go on about that, a lot of you on your tables, you'll have an envelope or two envelopes, or you'll have two bags. If you can take out the white envelope if you've got one, or the little bags, which have three pieces in them, and put them together. So this is the start of how inventors invent inventions. What you'll find is those three pieces actually form a light bulb. Now, light bulb was often representative of an idea. Now, if you open up, that's it, the light bulb goes on, the idea comes out. Now, if you open up the coloured envelope or the larger bag, you'll see there's 6 pieces in there. Only put the first 2 pieces together at the moment. And I'll explain the significance of the other ones that go together. Now, I know some of you won't be able to resist, you have to put it all together, but that'll be okay.
Of course, I have a challenge.
Cool. So, getting back to the story was that I had an idea to build a building block that moved. The problem I had was I had no idea how to do it. All I had was an idea that I thought may compete with Lego. If I could do it, it would get around all Lego's patents. So the solving of one problem created another problem. So what I did was, I went back to my engineering shop and I was kind of thinking about it for maybe another month or so, and then all of a sudden it struck me how to do it. Now, everyone familiar with a pair of jeans and a press stud on a pair of jeans? Yep. You know how a pair of jeans clips together and with a press stud and it still rotates? Well, I thought, why not use that as the clipping system for the blocks? What that would do would get me around all Lego's patents, because Lego predominantly forms like straight lines or right angles like that. And I thought, if I could make a building block that moved, it would keep me out of the law courts with Lego, and I'd have a product that I could compete with. So that's what I did. So here's the sample of my blocks. What they do is they clip together, like that, but the blocks can move, which Lego blocks can't. So that got me around all Lego's patents. But as I'd said before, I didn't actually know too much about marketing, didn't know too much about a lot of things in business really, but I knew I was onto something and thought I had a good idea. So what I did was I put together a business plan, and I spent a couple of years going around Australia looking for venture capital. But one thing I also realised was that, after seeing a few people, was that I work far better if I've got something to show them. And at the time I didn't have anything to show them, I just had an idea, had a concept. So what I did was I made some prototype blocks. I made a simple machine to mould some prototype blocks. Now I needed 5,000 blocks, I figured, to do a bit of testing and to show people. and my machine would make about one block roughly every minute. So if you do the maths, I spent 5,000 minutes, around about 3 weeks, just sitting there going, moulding blocks one by one. Now the catch with that was about every 6th or 7th one was a reject, so I spent about a month actually sitting there making blocks. And with that, I went around and showed venture capital people and anybody I thought would be interested would be able to help me out. And I couldn't find anyone who was interested. And then I remember I was speaking to my sister's boyfriend, John Wilkie, who was a carpenter. He used to fit cabinet, he was a cabinet maker actually, he used to build cabinets in people's kitchens. He was a really good one at that. And John said this little bit of an offhand left field comment. He said, why don't you ring up a mate of mine in the States, Kelvin Claney? Kelvin was doing quite well at the time. He'd been over there for 12 months and he was building quite a successful business. So I said, all right, nothing to lose. Why don't I ring Kelvin up? So I rang Kelvin up. And Kelvin said, yeah, look, I am interested in your product, Warren. Just show me a little bit more about it. Now, if you go back to your puzzle, put a couple more pieces together on your big puzzle. So you should have 4 pieces together now. Unless, of course, you put all the pieces together, then you've got it all done.
That's just me. I'm a scientist.
That's me too. So, Kelvin said, yeah, I am interested. Show me more. Now, I still had the little issue of being $100,000 in debt and not having any money. But I sensed that Kelvin was really interested in what I had, and I just thought it was too good an opportunity to pass up and not give it my best shot to go and see him. So what I did is I sold off a chunk of my engineering business to finance my trip across to the US. The problem being really was that if it didn't work, when I came back to Australia, I'd kind of sold off half my ability to produce income to pay all my bills and pay all the rest of the stuff off. So I really kind of needed this to work. So I went over to the US and Kelvin said, yeah, look, I am interested. And he kind of hummed and hawed for a while. And then after about, I came back to Australia, he said, yeah, look, I'm definitely still keenly interested. But he wouldn't commit. He didn't commit yes or no. And what I found was, when I was going around Australia looking for venture capital people, what I always asked for people was a yes or a no. Didn't really matter to me whether it was a yes or a no, but if it was a yes, well, let's do business. If it was a no, thanks very much, we'll move on. So I kept pushing Kelvin for a yes or a no. And it was eventually Kelvin's wife, Robin, that said, Kelvin, you've got to be in this. This is a great product. Kids really love this toy. You've got to really be in it. So in the end, he said, look, Warren, he said, here's what I'll do. He said, I'll produce a commercial. Because how Kelvin made his money, is you familiar with the commercials on TV, like the KTEL type commercials where they advertise a product, at the end of it you buy the product, then you get a free set of steak knives, and just when you thought you'd have enough, you get another free set of steak knives.
But wait, there's
always more. There's always more. Well, that's how Kelvin is one of the most successful people in America who are doing that type of commercial. And Kelvin said, here's what I'll do. I'll put in $30,000. We'll produce a test commercial for you, and we'll see if it works. Now, if it works, we'll do a deal. If it doesn't work, we'll shake hands and we'll just say goodbye. So I said, it was the best deal I had on the table at the time. It was the only deal I had on the table at the time. So I thought, well, why not give it a go? So anyway, Kelvin and I shook hands, and I'll show you the commercial that he made.
Hey kids, the fun never stops when you play with BetterBlocks. Why? Because they move. Watch how they bend, shake, curve, spin, and flex to create hours of fun for everyone. With BetterBlocks, you can make a race car that rolls, a robot that strolls, a bulldozer that works, and a monster that lurks. And that's not all. Watch. Lego-style blocks are great to build square shapes, but they don't bend or move. Now watch as BetterBlock connectors snap onto Lego-style blocks from top and bottom like this, making your blocks movable, bendable fun. Wow! Just look. BetterBlocks make regular blocks even better. Make a Lego castle a better castle, a Tycho train a better train, a mega plane a better plane. And because BetterBlocks curve, you can make a princess's crown, a necklace that's round, a bracelet, a ring, just about anything.
And then we brought another range of blocks out. They're a glow-in-the-dark range.
There's new, bigger BetterBlocks.
And then we brought another range of blocks out.
8 times larger than...
Now, do you think those commercials work? Anyone going to say yes after my last debacle?
Getting better.
No, yeah, they're getting better. That's good, because they were getting better. In actual fact, those commercials work fabulously well. Between Kelvin, well, mainly through Kelvin's efforts, we went on to sell $45 million worth of blocks worldwide, and we sold roughly about 2 million kits around the world. So it was quite a successful product there for a while. But it's also was interesting to note that we were the first people to sell toys by that method in America. Because the catch is that kids sometimes kids do today, but kids don't actually have credit cards, particularly the market that we're aiming at, which is about 7, 8, 9, 10. So they couldn't pick up the phone and buy as parents do. So the direct marketing experts said it would never ever work. But we proved them wrong, because what they didn't take into account was the power of children. Like, have you got kids? Yeah, absolutely, right? That's what they didn't take into account. It's a very effective advert for children. The other thing was that advert was the longest, BetterBlocks was the longest running direct selling product in America. And again, the people who supposedly knew were quite astounded by that, because traditionally that type of advertising works for about 2 years, and then it's run its course and you need to get into the retail market to extend the life of your product. We went on for 9 years making money out of that advert. So there was a couple of firsts that Kelvin did really, really well. The other thing that the other side of BetterBlocks was that when I met Kelvin, I didn't have a manufacturer in place. I hadn't found someone who was interested enough to manufacture it. And Kelvin said, look, he said, I've got a friend of mine in America, another friend of mine, who said, who's got a manufacturer, you've got a friend of mine in New Zealand who owns a manufacturing plant in New Zealand. Give him a call because he may be interested in making it. I think he could be. So what I did with David Williams was the gentleman's name. I remember ringing up David and saying, look, I've got this new building block system. Kelvin's probably going to try it out. Would you be interested in giving us a bit of advice, like to turn my prototypes into a commercial product? And David said, yeah, sure. He said, send me across some drawings. So I sent him across my sketches. And within a week, David had sent back proper engineering drawings that he air freighted over, landed on my doorstep. And they probably cost him about $1,000 or maybe $1,200 for those drawings. And all I asked him to do was to give me some comments on it. So when the advert was successful from Kelvin, do you think David got the business to make it? And that was a sort of enthusiasm that I came across every now and again, and eventually they were the people that we built a team around us. And that was the main reason why BetterBlocks was successful, was because of the team we built around us. Now, if you go back to your puzzle, you might want to put the last 2 pieces in, or for the people who have already put them in. And you'll notice that the puzzle there, it forms a light bulb. It's the same light bulb that you actually made out of the first 3 pieces, but this light bulb is defined by what's outside. Because a lot of people, I find, think that ideas come from inside out, but from my experience and from what I've seen, ideas come from outside in. It's like, if you note, every significant thing that happened on my journey with the BetterBlocks came because I saw something outside, I saw a problem outside. I solved the BetterBlocks movable system because I took notice of a pair of genes. Kelvin came from outside, David Williams came from outside. So the true secret to inventing is what I found as being very observant, and the other thing is being persistent. or Karen may say pig-headed, it depends how you want to describe it. But because why I say persistent is there's only 1 in every 600 patents that are successfully commercialised in Australia. And the question I ask is, why was my 1 in 600? Because BetterBlocks is a good idea, but I never thought it was a great idea. Like I saw many far greater ideas than BetterBlocks never ever see the light of day. And it wasn't because they weren't a great idea, it was because the inventors gave up. And that was the only sure way I knew to fail, was to give up. So to be a successful inventor, it really takes about being a little bit observant and having a go. Because you never know, like some inventions don't work, like Shuffleboat didn't work, but thank God the BetterBlocks did. So that was my journey of the BetterBlock journey and how inventors invent inventions. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening and participating and putting the puzzles together.